A review of the bulk greens powder. Now this will not be a nutrition review, but much more how I used it. So this is the powder, this is the bag from the front and the back. Now in terms of pricing, there are mostly two alternatives which I considered. The first one I didn't really consider, but I heard about it on Huberman Lab, which is Athletic Greens, which is quite high priced. I think it's anywhere from 50 to 80 euros a month or something like this. With this, then you get basically the one daily serving they recommend. Now this has only 8 ingredients. I think there was a previous version available that had more ingredients compared to this, whereas they have now only 8. The ingredients are spirulina, chlorella, broken cell ball, broccoli, pumpkin seed protein, spinach, alfalfa, moringa, and kale. So only 8 ingredients. They said they wanted, I think, a slimmer profile or something like this, that they concentrated on the core things, and previously they had lots of things in there. Now the recommendation says have 3.5 scoops, approximately 9 grams, with 250 milliliters of water in a shaker bottle. Consume 1 to 2 servings daily. Now since this bag here costs around 33 euros if you buy it at least on Amazon, on the bulk website themselves they have sometimes discounts, and sometimes if they don't have these discounts, then sometimes you pay twice as much or even more than twice as much. Example would be the protein powder. So the protein powder usually sells, if you have a reasonable discount, at, let's just say, the plant protein powder at 2.5 kilograms sells usually at 38 to maybe 42 euros. Now, if they don't have these discounts on, and sometimes it says the same discount, but nonetheless, you then pay a ridiculous amount, even though it says the same discount, let's say 75% or 80% or 90%, and then you still pay twice as much as you normally would. As of today, for example, I looked up the plant protein powder, I think, and it was, I think, somewhere around 50 euros. The whey protein was in the 70s, and sometimes it's actually 45 euros per 2.5 kilogram bag. So in terms of pricing, in terms of their pricing strategy, I decided to no longer mentally bombard myself with these discounts, and so therefore I bought them on Amazon. But you cannot get this unflavored version of the greens powder, which I have, at least as of now, on Amazon, which is unfortunate. So I wrote them actually as of today, Amazon, that they should offer this. So now let's try this. 3.5 scoops. This is the scoop that comes with it. I just put it on a spoon in order to be able to hold it better, because otherwise it is fairly small. I also put it in a glass, mostly because the bag is just a bag, and it's kind of hard to get things out of there. That's 2, and now that's a 3. So I actually tried the taste of it for the first time as of today, because previously I only would use it as part of my shake. So the shake I make is a part of a program, not a program, but a prototype, in order to see how much of my nutrition I can get into a powdered form. So this began 2 years ago when I tried first different meal shakes, and then so it now begins to already sink. So I tried different meal shakes, and then kind of decided to try to adapt these meal shakes, and eventually it actually looks quite green, quite dark green also. The color is almost like, it reminds me of Tony Stark in the Marvel movie, in his movie, what is it called, Iron Man. Now I did have this shaker, and this shaker is also leaking from a smoothie mixer. Now this actually, I think, it looks fairly similar to the ones that come with Huel Greens or Athletic Greens. So Huel Greens would be the second component or the second version. So I previously tried Huel Black for the purpose of being my one and only meal shake, but it didn't really work that well. I tried it as of today again. I still have a half of a bag of it. So in terms of just simplifying nutrition, it seems that Huel still has this offering, but I just don't know whether it fits me, and I again and again come to the conclusion that it doesn't. So in terms of pricing now, the Huel Greens sell for, I don't know, maybe 30 to 40 euros a month, and this then includes daily serving. This sells now for 33 euros, but it contains 55 servings. It also says 1 to 2 a day, but if you just say it's 1 a day, then you would get 1.5 months to almost 2 months of servings out of 30 euros. So this would result in less than 1 euro per day or per serving. I asked Microsoft Copilot to compare the prices, and it says the following. Also, in the country I live in, Huel Greens does not sell, which is also something to note. So Athletic Greens, the price here is 79 euros for 30 days of supply, which contains 30 servings. So the cost per serving is then 2.63 euros. In terms of Huel Daily Greens, if they would sell, but they don't in Germany, then we would have 45 euros for 30-day supply, which would be 30 servings, and the cost per serving then would be 150. If I divide the 33 euros, I would get at least a flavored version of these as of now on Amazon, and divide it by the 55 servings. Let's just say I would have 1 serving a day of these, which I currently am having, then I would pay 60 cents per this. So this would be at least half as pricey or as expensive as Huel Greens, but multiple, so basically a fifth of the price of Athletic Greens. I also never really considered Athletic Greens because it was just ridiculously priced. And since every 7th YouTuber seems to also offer Athletic Greens as one of their products, it seems to be that they have lots of budget for marketing. In this case, they probably pay them a fairly high affiliate commission, which in return means that you probably have quite a high margin in there, which I am not really willing to pay for. So also, because I bought so many other ingredients from bulk from this company I bought this from, and they sometimes seem reasonably priced, sometimes not so much. But for example, the vegan protein powder also sells for maybe 38 euros if I can get it like this, and this contains 2.5 kilograms of powder, whereas Huel, on the other hand, of course Huel is a little bit of a different product, but the vegan plant protein powder also contains digestive enzymes as well as blends of different proteins, and also has a few carbs, so I just use it kind of as the basis for as well as with other protein powders, kind of as the basis for my milkshakes. And so I was trying to find a solution for also. So the one thing that always stuck out as the problem with these milkshakes is, what about all of the vegetables? And so I tried to find a solution for this. Now, of course, I could go and order 7 different vegetable powders, which bulk part of them offers. So you could get spirulina, chlorella, you could also get broccoli powder and a couple of other ones. There is also a fruit powder complex that sells, but I'm kind of concerned about my metabolic cost of these foods. The idea was to get basically more variety in there in order to just increase the number of food items I would have in a given week. And so I have been drinking this, but not in necessarily this form, for the now last 3 months. Also as part of this project, so part of this project of the milkshakes was to see whether I could already algorithmically determine part of my nutrition. So I got a blood draw in last December, and Inside Tracker gave out food recommendations. I took all of these, and of which I found, basically of these recommendations, I looked up of which of these I could find in a powdered form, and then I just got them together into a morning drink. I sometimes also, so this morning drink is not really completely determined by an algorithm, but I also added a few other components, like a little bit of salt or electrolytes in the form of a soup vegetable powder, for example. Now, and also I added basically the daily recommended portion of greens in here. Now, this contains now not so much different other vegetables. This is not really a vegetable powder. Nonetheless, it is kind of through the decision filters I used, which are that I would try to see if bulk offered something like this, because then, I just buy this instead of researching 15 other options and comparing the prices, because I kind of know at this point that bulk, even though sometimes it sells things at a high price, let's say the flaxseed powder, for example, is reasonably high priced, not reasonably high priced, but high priced. And so I went kind of as the standard for basically all the powdered food I would get, or powdered food components from bulk. They also offer many things or a few things not that I would want to order, such as egg powder. But nonetheless, let's try this. And so the reason I am trying this now again and also making this video, first of all, I saw that nobody on YouTube talked about this, mostly this powder here, and so this seems to be also kind of a viable option, at least from one of the big dietary supplements. Maybe a third option that is not as pricey as. So it seems to be the case that because Athletic Greens has such a high price, then Huel gets away with only being half as expensive, and then Bulk also gets away with kind of still making this very high priced product. So maybe the chlorella is that expensive, but the broccoli powder, for example, also sells at a lower price. So I was also thinking about potentially making my own, buying these different powders and potentially mixing them together. But there is also the, first of all, strategic cost of then coming up, and also the responsibility of optimizing this. And so I decided to kind of simplify these decisions similarly to how someone would simplify healthy nutrition and just buy Huel, for example, and drink this as one of the 5 or one of the 3 meals in a given day, what I also try to do. So I was fairly surprised as of today as I tried this powder for the first time on its own, because previously I had only used it basically as part of this shake, and part of the shake is also 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder. So in order to not have to measure this out every single day, I basically, no, it's not actually 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder, but 1. But I have also 1 tablespoon of this, so I simplified it. Instead of having the 3.5 scoops of this, I just have now 1 tablespoon of this, which is about the same, I think. And so the sweetness, which is partially found in here, is kind of countered by the bitterness of the cocoa, which means that this usually does actually not taste that pleasant. But it seems to be that cocoa, first of all, is recommended by Inside Tracker, so this is also part of this project of trying to algorithmically determine a part of my nutrition or a portion of my nutrition in order to get rid of this optimization responsibility, at least in part, and to also maybe have therefore an overall more optimized system if I give up kind of part of this responsibility to an algorithm that then basically gives out these recommendations based on their user base, but also based on the scientific literature on nutrition and also on the correlations and potential links in between my blood work and also the trackers it gets or the markers it gets from Inside Tracker. So I was surprised that this actually tastes somewhat sweet actually, probably because they have something in there which tastes partially sweet, but it doesn't say that there are basically no sweetness in there. It doesn't say that there are sweetness in there, that's what I'm trying to say. So we have these different ingredients, and for some reason it actually tastes quite sweet. Also, if we take a look at this, then we also find that is in terms of the per 100 grams, so if you took this per 100 gram, that this was actually kind of close to a protein powder with 42 grams of protein. There's also quite a little bit of salt in there, which is also useful, I think, because then I don't have to I don't have to add as many electrolytes in the morning or salt in the morning. And also 2.5 grams of fat, which might make the vitamins in there maybe more accessible, as some are, I think, fat soluble only, or are better taken from the body if they are solved in fat. So let's finally drink this. Not that this is something that's very important how it tastes, because mostly the ingredient list is what determines the utility, I think. And similarly to how I just drink the morning drink, even though. So I usually add apple cider vinegar to the morning drink and lemon juice in addition, and I then just add a little bit of more water in order to kind of pollute the taste of the cocoa that tastes quite bitter. Sometimes I have actually craved kind of the greens powder. Maybe this was before I added the cocoa, but I again use this as of today also to add this in part for my kind of self-made milkshakes, and also used it as a sweetener. I don't know which ingredients actually taste so sweet. It could be maybe the pumpkin seed that kind of tastes like this. Also the broccoli, I presume at least, tastes like this. So finally, it might be the combination of the broccoli as well as the two, so spirulina and chlorella. And maybe also the other components, which I don't really know what these are, but I assume that someone put some thinking behind this product. Also, if the product was basically including many different things before and now it has less ingredients, then I assume this might be an optimization. And so, well, it tastes like, what does it taste like? A little bit like pumpkin seed protein, I would say. So pumpkin seed actually, so also I had the oil in my nutrition for a couple of months as of the last years, and it also tastes, well, a little bit like this, maybe because of the protein in there. This is actually about the amount of water that is recommended. Oh, actually not so much. I actually filled in too much. So what would have been recommended would only be 250 milliliters. These were 450. So that's kind of the bulk. Complete greens powders. It costs 60 cents per serving. If I take the current Amazon price for this and not the discounted and sometimes not discounted price on the bulk website, then these are 500 grams. I don't know how many grams these others are. Of course, now you could also manipulate the pricing with different serving sizes. So if you just had different ingredients that would result in a different density, then you would have different grams per serving size, which then also would maybe manipulate the pricing, and maybe then you would get actually more from something else if the serving size here, for example, would only, so one serving is 9 grams as of here. I don't know what the Huel is. So Huel is 8.5 grams, so about the same, 0.5 grams less. And Athletic Greens is 12 grams, which is then 30% more or 35% more. But if someone would want to compare this, you could also just say, okay, let's just take the cheapest ingredient and just put a little bit more into this, or just take another ingredient which is not containing any benefits, in order to kind of pollute the comparison, the otherwise legitimate weight comparison.